Hello everyone, welcome to Forever Rugby on Fair Sports. For today's preview, Wales versus the Springboks, and a game on paper which a lot of people are saying, should be a comfortable victory for South Africa. However, it is a game very much actually a bogey opponent are Wales, who took a long time to get their first ever victory over the Springboks. But since then, their record against the Springboks has actually been very, very impressive. And the last time that we actually beat Wales in Wales was back in 2013. So it's pretty much been 8 years since we beat Wales in Cardiff. And it's going to be a massive ask this weekend, as Wales, despite a lot of injuries, have managed to name a pretty strong side, whilst the Springboks have gone with a lot of continuity and have also named a fairly strong side themselves. If we look at sort of the overall record in terms of what we've seen this weekend, there have been 36 tests across the two teams in total. South Africa have won 29. Wales have won just 6. But those 6 have pretty much come almost sort of in a row, really, in terms of how many times they beat South Africa, especially when it comes to playing against Springboks in Wales itself. So it should be quite an interesting clash. Before we look at the teams and what sort we can look forward to, please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. I'll be live for this game. We'll be back to our usual sort of coverage. We're going to be going live nice and early, going through all the team stuff like that. Then we'll be doing our player rating show as well. We've got a lot of rugby this weekend. England versus Tonga. Carl will be taking you through that. Lucanio is back this weekend. He'll be with you for France versus Argentina, as well as Scotland versus Australia on Sunday. So plenty of watch-alongs. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you get that little notification whenever we do go live. Now, in terms of the teams, we'll start with South Africa, and not too many changes, but a couple of changes in the backline, which is quite interesting. Now, in terms of the pack, it's pretty much the pack we expected, isn't it? It's the pack that started against New Zealand. We've got Oxenchair, Bongi Manambi, and Trevor Nyakani up front. No Frans Malherbe for the tour, so Trevor Nyakani will be operating as a tight head throughout the tour. The two locks will be Eminette Tibet and Loet Diaga. Franco Moster will come off the bench. We have gone with the 5-3 split, which allows more backline players there. And then we've got Sia Khaleesi, Kwagga Smith, and Dwayne Vermeulen as the loose trio. I think quite a good loose trio, especially given the fact that it is set to be quite wet and tricky, and conditions are going to be quite tricky. I think we've got 3 players with pretty good skill sets. Dwayne Vermeulen is so important under the high ball. Kwagga Smith, gets around the park, sort of very good skill set, which will be very useful in wet conditions. And then in terms of the backline, this is where it gets interesting. Hershey Yankees gets a start. Somebody who sort of struggled with a little bit of game time for the Springboks so far this year, but he gets an opportunity to start next to Andre Pollard, who is continued to be backed by Jacques Nienaber. Alton Yankees named on the bench once again. Max Zoloma Pimpi in the number 11 jersey, Damon Lindy Lucanio continue their centre partnership, but 2 new players into the starting lineup. Jesse Creel gets a start at wing, the first time he started at wing since 2018. And then Damien Willemse is starting at full back, which a lot of people were very upset that Aprile Fassi isn't playing, but I think a lot of people are quite relieved that Willie Leroux is not playing, being given some time off, and we are seeing a different option at full back. And I'm very interested to see how Damien Willemse goes. They talked about the fact that he made his Springbok debut, I think, about 19 years old, and yet he's only started about 3 or 4 tests before this. So a massive opportunity for Damien Willemse to really sort of start living up to the potential and the talent we all know he has. Also a big game for Jesse Creel. A lot of people are asking for Aprile Fassi to be playing, but I think, given the fact that, the wings for Wales are probably their sort of two of them big, most important players, the likes of Louis Rees-Zamm and Josh Adams. Josh Adams being such a big player. Defensively, I think Creel is going to have a massive job to do this weekend, and that probably is what gets him ahead of someone like Aprile Fassi. Off the bench, Malcolm Marx, Stephen Kitshoff, and Vincent Koch, the usual sort of bomb squad front row. They're joined by Franco Moster, Jasper Wiese. No Marco van Staden this weekend, who has suffered a concussion and is not available for selection. And then you've got Kobus Reinach, Alton Yankees, and Frans Steyn. So a lot of experience coming off the bench and the likes of those 3. A lot of attacking nation, Reinach, Alton Yankees, the massive boot of Frans Steyn as well. So it's a nice sort of couple of players to be able to bring on in the latter stages of the game. In terms of Wales, this is how they line up. No Adam Wynne-Jones, who has been ruled out, in fact, out of the Six Nations next year as he undergoes surgery for a shoulder. You sort of wonder how many more injuries is he willing to sort of rehab himself. You got to take your hat off to him. This is a man who's played 150 tests, and yet he just will not stop playing rugby. And I think people will say, if you read F. of his book and understand his pure love for the game, he just loves it. And he said, basically pretty much says, until he feels he can't perform, and until people start telling him that he can't perform, he won't stop. But there is no Adam Wynne-Jones this weekend, which means that the captain will be the outside centre, Jonathan Davies, very, very nice player. So we look at this Welsh squad. An interesting selection right up front with Rhys Kerr starting ahead of Wynne-Jones, who'll be coming off the bench. I wonder if that's sort of been done to sort of try and nullify the bomb squad a threat, or at least sort of reduce the threat of the likes of Vincent Clark, Stephen Kitsov, Malcolm Marks coming off the bench late there. Reece is joined by Ryan Elliott and Thomas Francis. Will Rowlands comes into the starting lineup, which sees Adam Beard shift to the number 5 position, and will have to be a bit of a general in that sort of tight 5, especially when it comes to line-out time. And then Ellis Jenkins comes in for the injured Ross Moriarty. And then we've got Tane Basham, very nice player, very physical player, big ball carrier there as well. And then Aaron Wainwright at the number 8 position. I'm a big fan of Wainwright. I think he's going to be a nice addition. And look, I mean, you think that this is very much a second string loose trio. No Falatau, no Navidi, no Tipuric. It's still a decent loose trio for considering all the injuries that Wales currently have. Dan Biggar comes straight back into the starting lineup. Obviously wasn't involved last weekend against New Zealand because he was playing club rugby, because he plays in the Premiership. And then he is partnered this weekend with Thomas Williams. The two wings, Josh Adams, Louis Rees-Zammit, I mean, just so much pace between those two. So they will be very, very lethal if given any sort of space. And South Africa will have to be defensively very much up to standard there. And in the centres, Jonathan Davies, the captain, he is joined by Nick Tompkins. And at fullback, it will be Johnny McNichol. Off the bench for Wales, Bradley Roberts, the South African-born hooker, is set to get his first appearance. Wyn Jones and Will Griffith-John is the front row. Ben Carter, Seb Davies covers the rest of the scrum. Then the very experienced Gareth Davies provides cover, as well as Gareth Anscombe, who obviously started last weekend against New Zealand. Good to see him back in Welsh colours. A very, very talented fly half on his day. Can really do switch a game on his head. So very interesting to see how he goes. And then Liam Williams, arguably the best player under the high ball, is in the number 23 jumper. So they've got a lot of options to Wales. Despite a lot of injuries, I think it's still a decent Welsh side. As I said, conditions do suit them. It is a place where the Springboks don't like playing. So don't write Wales off by any means. It should be an absolutely epic test match. We will be live for it. Let me know what your score predictions are down in the comments below. Smash the like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Stephen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.